Good morning. First of all, thank you all for being here on this kind of an emergency basis. This is our notice meeting for June 23rd, 2023 at 10 a.m. It's a hybrid meeting, and we are conducting it pursuant to the governor's emergency orders, which have been extended, which allows for hybrid meetings and for the public to attend virtually. And if you attend virtually, you can find the Zoom address on the meeting notice, which has been posted with the town clerk's office. So let's start by doing our usual tech check, combination tech check and roll call so that I can hear you and you can hear me. We'll start first with those who are here live here at PSAB. Jean McKnight.
Here.
Okay. No particular order here. Reg Foster.
Present.
Joe Barnes.
Here.
Dave Harrell.
Here.
Laura Dorfman.
Here.
And Rick Simba.
Here.
Okay. So let's start just with the chair's updates. I had done this by email, but one of the things that we had discussed at our prior meeting was participation by Park and Rec and representative of Park and Rec to CPC, and I've communicated with the chair of Park and Rec, and I've received assurances that they will have a new representative appointed and available on the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is, I believe, is July 19th, or was it 12th? We
moved it to the 19th.
Okay, so July 19th. Okay, and I also communicated that the individual should be appointed, the vote should be taken to the town clerk's office, and the individual should be sworn in. And so, because in order for us to have a better record with the town clerk as to when individuals were appointed and what their terms are when they expire. There was another matter, which was a question by Reg Foster about my authority if somebody who stayed on like me beyond my appointed term to actually vote. And I don't have an answer to that yet. And it's entirely my fault. I'll work with Cecilia to communicate with to our town council. I hesitated only because I haven't spoken to Cecilia, and I'm trying to communicate to our town council through our staff, because that's how we kind of control the building with him, which I kind of learned. Okay. All right. All right. So then the only other matter is on for today is a vote on appointment to the town community housing oversight committee. That you've had those materials distributed to you in our prior meeting. The select board has voted in this committee, and it's requested that appointments be made promptly. Select board the chair had noted to me that she had anticipated announcing the appointments at their next regularly scheduled meeting, which I think is next.
There's one on Tuesday on June 27th.
On the 27th, yeah. Okay. So with that, so we can appoint both either a current or former member of CPC. I'll take any nominations. One thing that I want to note, or two things. One is I think people have spoken to me about being appointed, and I don't want to step on any other appointments, but I certainly would be willing to serve in that capacity. But the other note I want to make is that, assuming for the moment that I'm going to be first, a current and then a former member of CPC, and I think this is a good practice, especially with this committee, is that the expectation is that the appointee would provide periodic written reports of TCHOC to CPC staff and or CPC chair. So it can be as simple as a 2-paragraph email, but I think there's got to be a lot of communication between the TCHOC representative and CPC. So that's what I would recommend, and that's what, if appointed, that's what I would do. So with that, I guess we can have first a discussion about the appointment, and then if we want to have any resolution for potential appointees. So why don't I just open up the floor? You can raise your hand. I'm not going to call on anybody. It seems like it's pretty much. So does anyone have any comments or questions or suggestions? Yes, Joe Morris.
Having received all the information from the town regarding the position, I didn't see the expectation for the regular time of meetings. Is it going to be a monthly get together, or is it every other week? Do you have any sense of that, Peter?
I don't, and I noticed that as well. And that's why I use the word periodic written reports, because I didn't know that if we were going to meet monthly or not. So it seems like those are kind of broadly defined parameters, and I think we'll probably get our footing. That committee will get its footing and start making those determinations. I assume that they would be episodic. They probably would be busy during the period of time when there's funding requests by community housing, whether it's the housing authority or some other third party. So I assume that's what they may meet more frequently than monthly, as we do during those times.
Okay.
So that's a good question, but I don't have the answer. But okay, that's a good question for the committee. Okay. And Laura Dorfman, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. It was kind of related to Joe's question, because it would be nice if the timing worked out to have the feedback when we needed it as we move along with the projects. And it may not be a monthly thing. It may just, we may not know. So it would be nice to know if there's accessibility, at least out, at some points for us to get feedback, even if it's not exactly on the date that the meetings are supposed to be held, if that makes sense.
I guess I just want to manage the expectations here. So what is it that you would want? If there's it's a body that's going to meet and deliberate, make decisions, get information. My expectation would be there would be some advice or review work,
Right.
and that the representative would report out.
And so I guess I just worried, would the timing be somewhat coordinated with the CPC meetings and the discussions we have? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
Okay, so why don't we say that can be an expectation? So, which is that there would be. So what you're saying is, look, we need your advice. You're going to provide some advice in connection with oversight. We need it in a timely fashion.
Yeah,
it needs to coordinate with the work of the CPC.
Exactly, and I'm not saying we may not need it all the time, but if there are set meetings, I feel like they should either be like maybe the week prior to when our next CPC meeting is, if that makes sense. And if there's anything we're concerned about, it can be brought up there so we're prepared for the meeting, or there may not be a need for assistance at every monthly meeting. I just want to make sure that the timing works, so that if we have a need and there isn't a meeting for 3 weeks, we're not having to wait.
Okay, so I think that's okay. I think I understand what you want. Yes, and we have Gene. First, I want to talk and let Dave's hand is up, and we'll go with Dave first. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because I thought this TCHOC was to advise the town on the follow-up of a grant that was made to for public housing, and not necessarily as an advisory group to the CPC. Am I wrong?
So what I would do is just return you to the body of the text, right? I don't want to. You've got the materials, and from our last meeting. I know that oversight is one of them, but I think that there is an advice provision in there. You're stretching my memory. I don't have it in front of me, but I would just refer back to text.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking in general what the general understanding is. So now we got the finance committee, the select board, and the TCHOC would be the entities that the CPC would have to consult with before a grant is made or before a vote is made?
Well, I do want to point out that yes, and that was that was my thinking when I reviewed the materials. And we are obligated by statute, CPC, to consult with Finance Committee and Select Board.
Right.
And so I don't know that there's any statutory requirement that CPC consult with TCHOC, but it may be one of those things where if TCHOC is kind of a committee empowered by the Select Board, it's probably best to take their advice or listen to their advice. Of course, ultimately, you're entitled to ignore it, right? You make your independent recommendations to town meeting.
I'm just trying to understand what the purpose of this committee is.
Yeah.
Peter, I have the document that I could put up on screen share if you'd like.
How do you do that?
Peter, my understanding while Reg is doing that was that this was a committee to oversee the town's interest in any expenditures. And that would be once CPC approved any expenditures, and it's now awarded that to the entity that's there. And this committee would oversee all of that and, function, to oversee the construction, the design, the timetable, all of that stuff would take place and basically protect the town's investment. That was my understanding.
Could you put up here on screen share?
Can we get that up?
Yeah,
I enabled it.
all right, thank you.
Reg, is this Kate Fitzpatrick's memo?
Yes.
Hold on. Ooh, okay.
So can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
So here's the composition, I think we know. And then here's the purpose and charge section here. Let me expand this a little bit, if that's big enough for people to see.
Yeah, I think it's the fourth bullet that
the
was
fourth
relevant.
bullet is the one has to do with advice.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
there.
In advance of appropriations. Whereas all the other has to do with monitoring of grants that have already been made, it seems.
And also I thought that they were to work with the consultant at some point or be involved in some way. Let me just see. Will the teacher...
That was part of a descriptive paragraph, but you can see that, yeah, the fourth bullet point is the advice provision.
I think the advice is not just to the CPC, it's to all the other boards too. So to the scheduling question that got us going from Laura, it seems like the CPC is going to be needing advice, during our funding cycle, but the other boards, and so will the other boards, but the other boards might be looking for advice above and beyond or outside of the funding cycle or oversight and monitoring.
And if
Oh, go ahead, Jean, sorry.
So the schedule for meeting is going to be dictated by the needs of several boards, I think would be my conclusion.
Okay. Jean, were you going to say something? I had a comment after you.
So we have a couple of hands up. First of all, Jean McKnight and then Joe Barnes. Jean McKnight.
yes, I want to point also to the memo from Kate Fitzpatrick on June 13th. And she's responding to a question of why can't the Permanent Public Building Committee take on the oversight role? And she sums up the purpose of the TCHOC as to monitor town investments in the development, creation, rehab, restoration, preservation, and support of community housing. So she emphasizes the monitoring. And although the fourth bullet point refers to advice, pre-appropriation advice, which I think will be helpful, I personally see the role of this committee, and I've said this before, is like if you have a commercial lender on a large project that involves construction, you have monitoring of that construction before payments are made at the various stages along the way. And I see this committee's role largely as being that kind of monitoring to see how the project is going along. So,
I agree with Gene.
Yeah, but there is that provision there that deals with advice. There is that element, and I guess that's maybe I'm not that familiar with the Permanent Public Utility Committee and its charge, but it seems that it may provide some advice in terms of pre-expenditures as well. But obviously, the overwhelming charge and responsibility here is to monitor town investment in community housing. The expense, their investments. Okay.
I get it.
And there was another, wait, look, I just want to give Joe Barnes an opportunity to speak. Okay,
Yeah.
Joe Barnes.
Just quickly, I think that in addition to the oversight of the projects, once they're been voted by us, I would view this committee as a sounding board prior to a vote, in case there are any caveats that we've missed or any feedback we get from Finance Committee, any heads up, which we haven't gotten in the past. This could be a very valuable committee to us as we go forward to make our decision on whether we vote something in or out.
I agree.
So, and I think that I would anticipate that the communications between the consultant that CPC is funding and CPC, there would also be communications between that consultant and this committee.
Okay.
So that's how I think that's how I would anticipate. So I do think it's one of these things where we're going to we're attempting to coordinate and cooperate between committees. And so I think that's when I was looking at it and thinking about this, that's why I emphasized the need to have open, communication between the appointee and the CPC.
Rich, could I ask you to take your screen share down?
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay.
Peter, it's Laura. I just had one last quick comment on the memo from Kate Fitzpatrick that I think Gene was referring to. It's a sort of a Q&A, and it just on number 3 says, who on behalf of TCHOC will interact directly with the third-party developer's project manager, and it says TCHOC will meet regularly with the developer's project team to review status, finance updates, schedules, and other related developments. So, they are in an advisory capacity. That's what it really seems like to me.
I didn't catch your last comment. After your quote, your statement was what?
I said they do seem to be acting in an advisory capacity based on the FAQs in Kate's memo, and that one in particular.
Okay.
That sentence is based in the charge memo I just had up as well. It's the preceding bullet number 3, pretty much the same gist.
Yeah.
Just one follow-up.
Okay, and then one other question or follow-up here by Jean. Go right ahead.
Yeah, it just occurred to me in reviewing these, as read so many times, that it is only focused on community housing. In the future, if we have a large private project that is not community housing, I'm thinking these weren't large projects, but I'm thinking of examples of private projects funded by community preservation money, the Baptist Church front, and Unitarians, some work on the exterior of the Unitarian Church also. But if there should be a big project like that, I wonder at that time if this committee is still functioning, if its charge could be extended to such a project, and I expect it could be.
I think you're right, and I think that you pointed a good example of the prior expenditures that we made to non-government entities were relatively small. So, and the risk involved was relatively small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
Okay.
are two such projects in the near future already that are community housing. So if the question is this committee going to be lasting, beyond Linden Chambers? That already is in. If you recollect, Gene, there's the Stephen Palmer building that needs to be dealt with in 2025. That lease is up. And what happens to that building was part of the housing plan that just got approved. And the other one, of course, is we're going to be moving on to High Rock Homes, High Rock Estates. We have 60 antiquated World War II bungalows that need to be redeveloped. So, it would seem to me if this committee is doing its job, it's got plenty to do for the next 5 years.
Yeah, those are all community housing. Yeah, those are community housing projects that we would be looking at. Okay, so any other comments?
Peter, I'd like to start the nominating process.
Okay.
I'd nominate you for the position.
Okay, you probably want to state my name. Okay, but that's okay.
I'm
All
sorry.
Right. All
Peter
right.
Pickett, all right.
Yes, that's me. Okay.
I second the nomination.
Okay, Gene McKnight seconds the nomination. Okay. Just discussion. Oh, all right. I just want to point out that I'm current member. So this would be, I don't know how long the appointments are, but the appointment would be for my, as a current and then former member, just to make the record clear. I want to, that's what I assume you're doing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And the term of appointment is 3 years.
3 years. Okay, so you're gonna have to deal with me for 3 more years. Okay. Okay. Discussion. Hearing none. We'll have a vote. We'll start with Gene McKnight. Gene McKnight.
Yes.
Rich Foster.
Aye.
Joe Barnes.
Yes.
Rick Zimbo.
Yes.
Laura Dorn.
Yes.
Dave
Please.
Harris.
Yes.
And well, the chair votes yes. And thank you, by the way. I do appreciate you showing your confidence in me. And I promise to take my job seriously, but not myself too seriously.
Thank you. I mean, this is going to be super helpful to us,
All right.
for sure.
Thanks, folks. I got to run.
Okay.
Okay, bye,
thanks.
Rick.
All right. Any other matters?
Just
Any other matters?
I'm
one
just wondering
question.
about the,
Reg Foster.
oh, I'm sorry, Reg. I'm just
Reg
wondering
Foster,
about
yes.
the appointments.
Wait. Let's start with Reg. Hold on. Let's start
That
with
was
Reg.
my question too, Laura. So we're both asking the same question. Is there
And
any
what is the question?
on the appointments to the other vacant seats?
Okay, that's part of my chair's update. So we've got, as I said before, we have a very good candidate pool. We had everybody apply through the select board portal for applying as a volunteer to the committee. There are 2 open slots for the moderator to appoint and select board. I don't know if I may be repeating myself, but the town moderator has agreed to coordinate with the select board on interviews and make appointments based on that pool. We've probably got 6 or 7 people. They're all great candidates. Okay, really terrific candidates. I've spoken to most of them, maybe all. I played a role in recruiting at least 1 or 2. So, which I always think is a responsibility of people on the board. But the town moderator had some personal issues, and he needed some time. We had interviews scheduled for 2 weeks ago, and to wrap this up, and the moderator asked for some additional time, and you could see at the time he had family issues, and you probably know from our town clerk that his father has passed away. So he's dealing with some personal issues, and so we'll get on this interview process hopefully shortly thereafter. Okay, so I hope that it's satisfactory to you folks.
So Peter, I'm confused about the appointees. So the moderator and the select board appoint 2, and isn't there one that do they also interview the people that just apply? I'm a little confused on the openings.
Okay, so what I had said is this: all applicants who are interested in being appointed, maybe I garbled this, by either the moderator or the select board have been asked to apply through the select board portal.
Right.
Okay, so that is the applicant pool from which the moderator can select his appointees, or maybe somebody else, or the select board, that is the applicant pool from which the select board will make its appointment.
Oh, so the moderator has one and the select board has one?
No, the moderator on this cycle has two. It would be my seat and Rick Zambone's.
And
or
then the
our
select
seats.
board must have one. Okay.
And the select board has one, which would be Bob Dermot's term that's expired.
Got it.
By your next, over the next course of the next 2 or 3 meetings, you're going to have 4 new members. You'll have a new park and rec representative, 2 new moderator representatives, and a new representative of the select board.
Wow. That's a lot of new people.
Yep, it is. Okay.
May I make a suggestion?
Sure, Reg Foster.
That perhaps when we have the next meeting, besides thinking about, next meeting with the members present, which may not be this meeting coming up, but that we think about beyond what you've already suggested, Mr. Chair, about who is going to be chair and vice chair, that we think about an orientation session that would be done sometime during the summer that, sort of CPC, CPA 101, and put together something that walks people through the plan and kind of explains how the whole jigsaw puzzle fits together.
Yeah, can I interrupt? Thanks. So what there is what I was going to suggest, there's a webinar. That's very good. That's available from the Community Preservation Coalition. That's an extended version of Stuart Saginar's presentation that he makes to us. And I don't know that we can require it, but I really would like people to attend that webinar when they get appointed. And that's the kind of broader first thing, which is this overwrought statute. But then there is the town side, which, we need to bring these folks up to speed on what's cooking here, what's on the plan, what do we anticipate, how we go through our workflow, all that stuff. So it's kind of both, but I would really want our new appointees to attend the webinar. I don't know if we can require it. That's kind of an open question that I have for you folks.
I think the onboarding process could be a little more.
Cecilia, Cecilia has a comment.
The quick updates regarding the status can fall under the chairman's updates. I think deliberating on onboarding is a little outside of the agenda, unfortunately.
Okay, that's fine. That's very good. Thank you. I'm sorry. Sometimes we get mission creep on that. Okay, so we'll deal with that in our next meeting.
If you have ideas, please email them to me because I can start working on something.
So what Reg was really saying was, for our next meeting, can we talk about how we can onboard people? Yeah. That's really it. So and so thank you for cutting us off. That's all. And that's Reg, good suggestion. We'll deal with that in our next week. Okay. Great. Okay. So, and I apologize to all of you. Okay. For the creeping. Okay. All right. So let's have a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. I'll second that. And we have a roll call vote. Reg Foster.
Aye.
Jean McMahon.
Aye.
Dave Herrick.
Aye.
Joe Barnes.
Aye.
Laura Dorfman.
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. Okay, thanks very much, folks.
All right, take care.